Now, quite often on the show, we talk about the future of technology, about AI, robots, and all manner of kind of scary things. And it's easy to get overwhelmed by what the future holds, and often we want to turn a blind eye and just carry on with our business. But trend and innovation strategist John Sane travels the world empowering people with tools to future-proof themselves, as he refers to it. And he's also the best-selling author of a book called What's Your Moonshot, which is filled with great advice on how to thrive in an ever-changing modern world. And it's so great. If you haven't seen him speak live yet, follow him on social media and find out where he is, because it's well worth your time and money. But for now, we have him in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, John is in the studio. Come on! Yes! How are you, man?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
It's so good to have you in studio after seeing you a few months ago when we were in Namibia.
That's right.
And I know the inspiration I gained from just listening to you talk for about a good 2 hours.
Thank you.
What was supposed to be 45 minutes.
Yes, that's right. It stretched a little bit, yeah.
But let's quickly talk about this concept of future-proofing yourself and what it actually means.
Right. So I think it's really imperative to understand that the future is so different to where we come from. And so what happens is our psychology often lets us down. It's effortless to be pessimistic about the future. Our brains are lazy. They get into habits about thinking about things in a certain way. And when you tell people that things are changing, our brain goes into this sort of lazy mode. So what we have to do is first and foremost understand this idea of, are we either victims of the future or architects of it? So we have to start with psychology and understand we need to shift our psychology to become optimists about the future. And that's very closely linked to exposing ourselves to the future. You see, a lot of people don't expose themselves to the future. They kind of see a little bit about AI, a little bit about blockchain, a little bit about autonomous vehicles.
But it's like 50 years from now, so it's cool. It's cool.
And then they get scared of it. So they kind of like don't want to look at it. And then that sort of process is a spiral downwards. If I don't look at it, I don't have the right psychology. If I do look at it, I get the right psychology. The more I look at it, I get a better psychology. So it's a very closely linked opportunity for us to look at these future in bite-sized formats with the right psychology, and then all you can be is prepared and be more relevant and profitable in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you say it's easier to be pessimistic because that doesn't require you to do anything. You can just stand your distance.
In fact, it's the most effortless thing to do, to say, that won't work.
Yeah.
Or, this is South Africa, it's never going to come here. Which is really a very bad way to look at it, because things are changing at such a rapid pace.
All the more reason for us to actually then read your book, What's Your Moonshot? Give us a bit of an insight into what we can gain from reading this book and how it can help us to not take that lazy off-ramp.
So I think if you ask anybody, are you a victim? And nobody says they're a victim.
Nobody wants to be a victim.
Oh, nobody wants to be a victim, but our internal dialogue often lets us down. So the first part of the book is really about getting to grips of what are the traits of a victim, because you get many different types of victims. So you get arrogant, superior victims who look at the change and have become quite arrogant about it and go, no, it's not going to affect me. Or you get a sort of martyr victim who feels sorry for themselves, that thinks, oh no, this world's changing so quickly, what am I going to do? Poor me, what about my job? And you fall into a trap of not having the power to want to change anything. And the second part is, how do you categorize and contextualize the future? Because there's so much happening.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you actually put it into little bite-sized formats and then start talking about these bite-sized formats? So the whole concept is very much based on JFK's speech in 1961, where he said, we will put a man on the moon, and he had no technology to do so.
Wow.
And 8 years later, there was a man on the moon. And in today's world, with all this technology available to us, we have the same power as organizations and as governments did many decades ago.
Wow.
We have access to millions of people, we have access to funding, we have access to ideas. We now can create moonshots for ourselves. We just got to get the right mindset.
Excellent. And I can't wait to chat a little bit more to you about the book and all the exciting things that you're up to as well. In fact, I want to encourage some of our viewers out there at home to engage with us on social media on Expresso Morning Show SABC3. That's our Facebook page, and also at Expresso Show on Twitter. And ask questions of this man. We have a limited amount of time before he flies off across the world to inspire more people. But it's so good to have you here, John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Right now, it's time for the news.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Well, certainly very inspirational stuff there coming from the highlights of the 2017 One Young World Summit. And equally so, the man sitting next to me, best-selling author of the book, What's Your Moonshot, John Sane, joins us to talk about future-proofing yourself and how to survive in this ever-disruptive world that we're living in, and how to make sure that you can survive with the storm that not is coming, is already here. John, that's what we were saying, right?
Rather than survive, let's talk about thrive.
I like that. I like that. So I want to talk first quickly about the work that you do as one of the first South African to be part of the Singularity University in America. Firstly, what is that and what do you do for them?
So Singularity University was set up by the head of innovation for Google, Ray Kurzweil, and Peter Diamandis, who's helped Elon Musk set up SpaceX, amongst many other different businesses. So these two gentlemen, about 15 years ago, got together and said, you know, we need to start teaching the world and preparing the world for the future. And they set up a university on the same campus as NASA in San Francisco 12 years ago. And what they've been slowly but surely doing is educating governments and organizations on what the future looks like. So what they've done is curated about 80 to 120 people from around the world with specialities in AI, blockchain, autonomous vehicles, and made them faculty members. And what we do as faculty members is move around the world helping educate organizations, working with seminars, events, workshopping, just getting people to become more comfortable with the future.
You're basically like a superhero.
I wouldn't so much
of the future
superhero.
in the present. You've come from the future to save us all in the
I think Elon Musk has,
present.
to be quite honest.
Possibly, possibly.
But,
I need to save up for one of those Teslas. Anyway, let's talk about robots. Are they going to be taking over our jobs? And if so, what can we do to thrive in that environment?
So, a quick check. Robots are already around us. Your washing machine is a robot. Your toaster is a robot. Your car is a robot to a certain extent. And what we've seemed to think is that robots are only things with faces. Whereas if they don't have a face, they're not a robot. Of course they are. We are surrounded by robots already. These new robots will be more intelligent. They'll be very much better at learning than us. In fact, they often say that your left brain, your logical, language-specific space on your left brain will be replaced by robots, which is a fantastic opportunity for us to start focusing on creativity, self-discovery. So we'll start moving towards right brain arts and sort of social justice scenarios as we move away from having to be in survival mode, which is what the Industrial Revolution and left brain stuff does. When that starts getting replaced, we'll start becoming much more human, in fact.
Wow. You sound like you're making Black Mirror very much a reality of my life right now as I'm listening to you speak. But we're going to carry on with our chat shortly now, and I want you to think about this as well. And for parents out there, to think, how can they future-proof their kids? What industries are viable for future careers? And then also about cryptocurrencies and how viable they are as investments right now. Because I am a big pessimist when it comes to that and cynic when it comes to that. But we'll talk about it very shortly with John.
It's my feel-good breakfast show. It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. It's a Tuesday morning. This is your feel-good breakfast show, Expresso on SABC3, hanging out with inspirational strategist and future innovator John Sane. We're talking about being optimistic in 2018. And one thing I wanted to challenge your mind on is the concept of cryptocurrencies. We've heard about bitcoins and the like that are now worth millions of dollars. And are we looking at a world where this is the future we're moving into, or is it all just a scam to let us pay money into some foreign bank account and then whoop, there's nothing left? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's following a trend called the decentralization of power.
Yeah?
We're moving from a capitalist world to a sharing economy. And in this space, nobody owns anything. Governments don't own the powers that rule us, and currency is just one of them. If you look at how major organizations are starting to crumble down to become smaller businesses and networked, currency is just an extension of that. So we're starting to see these currencies merge, and they're not actually the traditional currencies that we're used to. They're more like tokens. So there's a very different way we need to approach them, and we can't categorize them as currencies per se.
So you would say if I had 10 grand right now, I should invest it into Bitcoin?
I would say try and even get more money and put it in there. I think the trajectory of where it's going hasn't even started yet. And at Singularity University in San Francisco, people are just talking about buy and hold. This is just the beginning of a brand new economic system that's being born.
Okay, something worth thinking about. And then speaking about trajectory, let's talk about your thoughts on 2018 and future South Africa, the political climate right now, what we're looking at in terms of our economy, poverty, the droughts, and then linking that thought with what parents can advise their children on in terms of future-proof industries and viable industries for careers going forward, given what we've spoken about.
So I think first and foremost as parents, I think the most important thing we need to practice as parents is, there's a great saying that says your actions are louder than your words. In other words, your actions are so loud I can't hear a word you're saying. So as parents, what sort of example are you putting forward to your children of trying new things, exposing yourself to the future, and molding your thinking around acting in a brand new way? If you're stuck in a job you hate, but then want your kids to be future-proofed, you're doing the wrong thing. Your actions aren't in line. So first and foremost, parents need to check themselves to set an example. Second thing, anything to do with technology, anything that's got to do with the blockchain, with AI, with medtech and fintech, I would always suggest that parents put their kids out of school into a startup environment. Put them into a startup environment for them to start feeling what it feels like to be birthing new ideas and trying to get them off the ground, because I think that's the future. Entrepreneurship is definitely the way people need to be moving forward.
All right, cool. So I want a lot of people to buy your book because I really believe it holds a lot of wealth of information that we could learn from, especially about thriving in the modern disruptive world. What is your favorite chapter in What's Your Moonshot, your book?
I have a chapter, I want to make a joke about us thinking like victims.
Okay.
And I call it peeing in your nappy. And so what happens when, it's obviously a hypothetical story, but if you pee in your nappy, the first thing that happens is you feel warm and relieved. And so when you think like a victim, you feel warm and relieved. But really, you're powerless and smell like pee. And so what we need to do is we need to joke with ourselves when we find ourselves thinking like a victim. When we start complaining about the government or only focusing on the negatives or things that are going around us, that makes us feel relieved but powerless. And so I want people to start becoming more lighter about the negatives, because they'll always be there, whether you focus on them or not, and really start to focus our energies on the things that we can do to make South Africa better, greater, faster, rather than keep focusing on the negatives. I mean, it's tiring focusing on those things, and just because you don't focus on them doesn't mean they're going to go away or not go away, but let's focus on the things that we can do to uprise South Africa.
So stop going in your nappy. Stop peeing
in your nappy.
Basically. Listen, if people want to book you and they want to see your talks, I know you're going to Dublin tonight and then you're on a world tour. Where can they find you on social media and see more of your talks about what we've been talking about?
So I share extensively. I vlog a lot on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. So please follow me on those channels. Also my website, johnsane.com. My left brain, as I call her, or my PA, she pops up and she's engaging with all sorts of people that are wanting to book me for workshops, strategy sessions, or just to do book launches.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time and your inspiration in the year ahead. Good luck on your trip. Come back safely, and we hope that this was also enlightening for you. Check out the book. It is available at all reliable bookstores. It's called What's Your Moonshot by John Sane.